Recently, Twitter has been the center of a firestorm for many reasons, but most recently due to the resurfacing of how the company handled the Hunter Biden laptop story in 2020. First Amendment violations, state actors, Trump, Biden, nude photos, social media, policies, buckle up. The date is October 14th, 2020, and the heat is on. Biden and Trump are duking it out. The New York Post published a story that claimed to include materials taken from Hunter Biden's laptop. Just in case you don't know already, that's President Joe Biden's son. As the article broke, Twitter was fast to suppress the distribution of the story. They initially blocked users from sharing the links, and they cited concerns it could be the result of hacking or a foreign disinformation campaign. Within days, Twitter backpedaled on its first response, and former CEO Jack Dorsey and others admitted that it was wrong to block the story. Since that time, outlets including the New York Times and the Washington Post have confirmed the authenticity of some of the laptop's contents. Now let's fast forward. It's currently December. The year is 2022. Many things have changed, and yet everything is still the same. But I digress, and let's continue. Elon Musk owns Twitter now. Sinks and all. He promised to release details about how Twitter handled the story. It was reported that Twitter received and granted requests from both the Trump White House and the Biden campaign to remove content. At least some of the posts that the Biden campaign requested removal were nude photos, which would have been violations of Twitter's terms of service anyway, so they wouldn't have likely to have surfaced. Recently, Musk wrote the following, quote, Twitter acting by itself to suppress free speech is not a First Amendment violation, but acting under orders from the government to suppress free speech with no judicial review is, end quote. Now here at the Free Forum Project, there has already been videos stating the importance of the Constitution and free speech. This is part of the reason that I'm publishing this content and dealing with this particular story. It wasn't any branch of the government that reached out to Twitter. It was the campaign office. Yes, they represent an elected official. They are not, however, a government entity. That means that this whole process is not a First Amendment issue. This is a technicality, and honestly, I have very mixed views about it, but bear with me because there's more information that needs to be contemplated. I'm going to post this language again. The actual context of the First Amendment states, quote, Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. Keyword, Congress. Now, to further engage, the courts have established that the term Congress extends to all government at all levels, federal, state, and local. The real determining factor here is whether or not Twitter is a government entity. Courts have also ruled as recently as 2020 that sites such as Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook are not state entities. They're independent companies. By that definition, that means that any social media site is actually exercising its First Amendment right by choosing what they do and don't publish. Media outlets have the right to grant or refuse requests from the government or private entities. And that is very important to remember. So here are my thoughts, and there's a few points that I'm going to cover here. First, social media companies are not government entities, whether you believe they are or not. They have the right to choose what is and isn't acceptable on their platforms. Removing Trump, they're right. Reinstating Trump, they're right. Removing Andrew Anglin, the white supremacist dirtbag, totally their choice. Reinstating him recently, also totally their choice. Allowing their users who agreed to terms of service and use to post or not post specified content, or rejecting their users from posting content for the same reason is also totally their choice. I'm not advocating when I say those words. I'm just stating the truth. If you want free speech, true freedom of speech, it's Twitter's right of free speech that allows their platform to decide what can and cannot be published on them. The same with any social media. If you don't agree, then don't use the platform. That's where the real power of the people lies. We can choose what places we do and don't support. By not viewing their apps and advertising, we can put them out of business. Secondly, requests are made by the government to the media all the time. They ask them to hold stories, delay publications, redact names, and many other requests, I'm sure. The elite have the power to do the same. Ultimately, Anyone has the power to do that, but it all comes down to what the media platform is willing to do for you and why. They have the right to refuse, which means there will most certainly be some sort of quid pro quo. I'm too jaded to believe in any integrity in any form in the media. Legally speaking, if the government forced the platform to withhold the story, yes, that is clearly constitutional overreach and violation. If Biden had stepped in using his capacity as an elected official to threaten or blackmail Twitter, he should be held accountable, absolutely. Considering sources say that even the White House made similar requests, I would say the same thing. If Trump ever made such requests and threatened the platform, he should be held accountable too. Side note here, if that part of the story is true, and both Republican and Democrats request of Twitter not to publish some or all of the information on the laptop in question, there is a much larger problem. Yet again, we are seeing what the duopoly looks like. They act like they're two different parties and they keep us fighting amongst ourselves while they rule the country in luxury. Don't forget that. Lastly, what is a state actor? That term comes up in the discussion of what is permissible and what isn't when it comes to freedom of speech. That seems to be a determining factor to ultimately decide whether or not Twitter violated the First Amendment. In United States constitutional law, a state actor is a person who is acting on behalf of a governmental body and is therefore subject to limitations imposed on government by the United States Constitution, including the First, Fifth, and 14th Amendment. If the government merely acquiesces in the performance of an act by a private individual or organization, it is not state action. But if the government coerces, influences, or encourages the performance of the act, it is state action. Rendell-Baker v. Cohn, 1982. These types of precedents have been set in the past, since 1982, obviously. The government requesting something of a private company is not legally considered a violation of anything. So to answer the question, are the social media platforms officially state actors when they make a decision regarding terms of use, service, and withholding posts or membership? Absolutely not. Does that mean people agree with that? Absolutely not. But legally, it's true. The painful facts of the matter are when Twitter decided to not allow the sharing of that article, they were actually exercising their First Amendment rights. For better or worse, that's what free speech means. We can share our opinions freely or choose not to share them. And if we host a platform such as social media, which is not owned and operated by the government, then we can choose to disallow the sharing of news. If it was owned and operated by the government, then absolutely, that would be a constitutional violation. But as it stands, Twitter didn't violate any constitutional rights, just the public's trust. And unfortunately, that isn't a constitutional right to violate, only a personal one. Today, my call to action is simply this. Use your real power. Don't gripe and moan. Don't whine incessantly about freedom and fairness. Take action. If you didn't support Trump being banned from Twitter, abandon the platform. If you don't like the fact that white supremacy is being allowed to access Twitter, don't use it. If Facebook or Meta or whatever is too liberal for you, don't use it. If you think TikTok will bring down national security, delete it, and quickly. Our only true power is what we allow to happen. We, the people, have all the power in the country, and yet we have none because we allow it. Be the people that so many countries wish they could be. Think freely, discuss openly.